Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out the surprising reason why British people sing in American accents.
Something struck me the other day about Adele and Lewis Capaldi and how their singing voices are so radically different from their speaking voices.
Hello, I'm Adele.
What happened was I got approached about it in 2019.
And people often ask that in the form of, why do British people sing in an American accent? But it's actually not just British people. It also happens to people from Ireland, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and all other parts of the English-speaking world.
I remember seeing an interview with the Beatles and a reporter asked them why they sing in American accents, and they said that they didn't. They didn't think of it that way. So I imagine that maybe just the way that in rock music or pop music or popular Western culture music, maybe it just comes from the way that they have to open their mouths a certain way to project. I think a lot of what makes an accent sound like an accent is the rhythm of it and the lilts. It could also be that the Beatles specifically were influenced by American music. So to them, if a British person is singing the blues is an American style of music, so maybe they're just mimicking that. I guess rock music comes from blues, and blues comes from gospel, so there's a lineage to American gospel music, so maybe that's part of why. But yeah, I'm interested to see what this guy's going to say. I have no idea. Why? Tell me why.
So what does it actually mean to sing in an American accent?
He's asking, what does it mean to sing in an American accent? I thought he was going to say why they sing an American accent. Am I being a grammar Nazi?
One aspect involves sounds before consonants and before silence, which many people in some of the countries I mentioned don't do in their normal speech, but do in singing. Harry Styles is from Redditch in Worcestershire, and most people there would say watermelon sugar without any R's. Well, in the unlikely event of any human being ever having said watermelon sugar before that song came out. Have you got any sugar? Yes, no, I've got cane sugar. Is it watermelon? No, there's no such thing as watermelon sugar, I don't think. However, when Harry sings it, he says watermelon sugar.
Watermelon sugar.
Another difference in that song is where most British people would say watermelon or watermelon, he says watermelon with a kind of, it's called a tap.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little D sound.
Watermelon.
And people often use that when singing wherever there's a T or a D between vowels.
I use that just when I talk. Watermelon. Watermelon. I don't say watermelon.
And that's a common feature of North American English. For some more features, let's have a listen to Adele. Now, her normal accent is Cockney because she's from Tottenham in London, also with some MLE influences. Now, I absolutely don't want to impinge on...
What's MLE? Multicultural London English? Never heard of that. MLE is characterized by long vowels made in the center of the mouth. For example, go will rhyme more closely with more than mow. Oh, mo. Oh, more. Gore. Gore over there. Okay. Interesting. I've never heard of that. I wish I could hear a sample of it.
To come out of where they're from and to see the world. And for me, it was joyous because the world was just an hour and a half up the road.
Okay.
Diverse population.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess that sounds familiar. I'm sure I've heard it before, but I didn't know it had a name.
Now, I absolutely don't want to impinge on anyone's copyright. And in the spirit of fair usage, I want to concentrate on the pronunciation of the lyrics. So I've edited out, as far as I can, the music. As a result, the voices don't sound very nice. So I really recommend that you go off and listen to the songs in their full glory, however you normally do that.
Yeah, never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you. Don't forget me, I beg. I remember you said, sometimes it lasts in love, but sometimes it hurts instead. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I beg. I remember you say, sometimes it lasts in love, but sometimes it hurts instead.
She doesn't have rhotic R's in this song, but she does in Hello.
Yeah, that sounds like gospel to me. It sounds like a gospel singer. I've heard this song 100 times, but hearing it, just the vocals, you really tell that it's gospel influenced.
Here, instead of her native mind,
Mind,
she's saying mind the first time round.
I'm sorry,
but
what?
mind,
in Hello. Here, instead of her native mind,
mind.
she's saying mind the first time round.
Oh.
But in other instances of the price vowel, she's going for a long R sound. So in kind and time. That's interesting
Southern.
because it's a feature of Southern US accents
Yeah.
rather than general American.
And also gospel. Came from the South.
That's interesting because it's a feature of Southern US accents rather than general American. I suppose the Beatles were among the first artists in the UK to start singing in American, and it wasn't always generally approved of. Apparently, Paul McCartney's dad suggested that they would sound more dignified if they sang "She Loves You, Yes, Yes, Yes." That would have gone down well. North American English hasn't had the trap bath split. So where Adele would say last, she sings last. The vowel in can't is interesting because in many parts of the UK that haven't gone through the trap bath split, can't still keeps the palm vowel. So the Beatles might say can't buy me love, but they sing can't buy me love. Money can't buy me love. And talking of love, that's how Adele pronounces it too. It's so common that people have actually come up with the joke spelling of love. And that's also a feature of the Southern US rather than general American.
Yeah,
so
that's
why
solid.
do non-Americans put on an American accent when we sing?
At first I thought it was because of just the way that singing in general makes you move your mouth and it kind of takes the accent out. But he's taking these specific vowel sounds and tracing it to Southern American English, which is really interesting. And because that's where gospel comes from.
So why do non-Americans put on an American accent when we sing? You'll notice I'm not saying why do we lose our accents, although that's a way that question is often phrased, especially here in the States. Kind of suggests, though, that everyone sounds American deep down once you remove some kind of surface accent.
From my perspective, that's what it feels like. It feels like the American accent is the base accent, and then everyone else's accent is put on top of that.
And that's a bit of an odd assumption. I actually made a spoof video about it, which I'll link to here and in the description below. And also, it's important to realise that it's not every time we sing. I mean, we're not all stood around the cake singing happy birthday to you. Unless we're channeling our inner Marilyn, I suppose.
He has
when we sing...
He has a really good American accent, I have to say. And it's fun to watch him switch. It's like messes with my brain.
We sing. I mean, we're not all stood around the cake singing happy birthday to you. Unless we're channeling our inner Marilyn, I suppose. It's when we sing American styles of music. And the US has contributed so much to global musical culture, especially during the course of the 20th century, and an especially huge contribution from African American communities. And I think that that, in turn, explains some of those Southern features that I've pointed out.
Yeah.
There's something about music that's so fundamental. So we get swept up in the rhythm and the pitch, and I think also the pronunciation. And I think that's why it's much easier to imitate accents when singing. And I think that's why we do it without even realising we're doing so.
Yeah, that would fall in line with that Beatles interview that I saw where they said they didn't sing in American accents, or they didn't intentionally do it.
I mentioned the Beatles earlier, and I think it's hard for us to imagine these days just how strong those American influences on them were. As kids, whenever a record by one of their idols came out, they had to get a bus across the city to go and listen to it at the house of a friend who had ordered it by mail order and had it shipped from the US. They drank in the chords and the notes and the beats, and I think also the consonants and vowels. It's no accident that American styles of music like jazz, blues, R&B, rock and roll, pop sound better in American accents. What other kind of music would you expect Americans to invent?
Yeah, I wonder if it sounds more correct just because we're used to it, or if it's because it lends itself to that style of singing more. Because the British accent can be kind of choppy and like constricted or in the mouth or something, where the American accent is probably it's like a little more mushy and like I don't know, unprocedural.
What other kind of music would you expect Americans to invent? Voice coaches talk about the placement of the voice, where people imagine that their singing voice is coming out from an imaginary hole in the top of their head or from the mask. Imagining those things helps people configure their vocal posture, relaxing some muscles, tightening others, broadening or tightening the larynx, etc. Phoneticians describing speech talk about articulatory settings as the default posture of the vocal tract for certain accents. For example, inner lip rounding and protruding lips for French. So again, it's hardly surprising that the voice placement...
Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie? Oui, oui.
So again, it's hardly surprising that the voice placement for musical styles born in the USA happens to correspond to the articulatory settings for American accents, which means it sounds better and is easier to produce using those accents. So what about Americans themselves? Do they lose their accents when they're singing? Well, surprisingly, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I'm envisioning like opera singers, Christmas carolers in the 1800s. And they look like this, la 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 la.
As I said, some of those features, like price and love, come from the American South. So singers whose normal accent is General American adopt those features when they're singing. Many Southern American accents are non-rhotic, and so many American singing styles drop the R before consonants.
That's right.
And at the ends of words.
Yeah.
Here's Bruce Springsteen singing Born in the USA. Not an R to be heard. The Broadway accent is also non-rhotic, as these examples from Barbra Streisand show. Together, spare, care, learn, somewhere. Now, for those of...
I feel like those are just because they're trying to project, so it's causing them to leave their mouth open in a way on those R's. Because if you said, what was the first one?
Together.
Like together. If you go together, it doesn't sound as good as together.
Now, for those of us with a passion for learning languages, the fact that it's so easy to imitate pronunciation when singing, to the extent that people don't even realize they're doing it, means that a good way for you to improve the accent of the language you're learning is to find songs that you like and sing along to them.
Okay.
Well, I hope you found this video interesting, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Right on.
Meanwhile, check out this video.
All right, maybe I will.
Take care and bye for now.
Oh, bye. Oh, he disappeared. Wow, really interesting video. You know, something I wish he touched on a bit was American country music, because I feel like I've definitely heard country singers use those hard R's, like, hello, darling. So okay. So I guess at the beginning, I was thinking that it was either because the style of music required it or because they do it to project a certain way. Other languages certainly do this too, I'm sure, in like Spanish rock music or like Spanish pop music. I wonder if they have those, what did he call it? Non-rhotic. Okay. So I guess some American country music is rhotic. Weird, because there are different southern accents, one non-rhotic and one rhotic. There's like this southern accent where the R's are rhotic, I guess is what it's called. I think of it as a hard R. And then there's southern accents like this where they do use non-rhotic, where it's like I declare, and it's a soft R. People don't really talk like this anymore. I think this was like back in the, days. What do you call those days? I don't even know what you call it. This is a great place in the video to pause it and let him look through your soul. This was a really great video. Paul McCartney, if you're watching, hit me up. Let's talk about stuff. Singing. Ringo too, hit me up. Great video. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.